podcast tonight is a bit weird. So if you're just joining us, I do apologize. We're experiencing some technical difficulties. But I have just thought directly of a workaround.
So please stand by if this works.
And I'm going to try to bypass
broadcast up off the
satellite and try to bring you the feed directly to YouTube. So please stand by if this works. We'll have a broadcast up off the ground here.
Darkwolf's Den, 42 James. Who else is up there? Oh, I'm in there too. But I think that covers most of you.
40
if I missed anybody, I apologize. So, again, I love the...
I'm in there too. But I think that covers...
Absolute beginners came to Georgetown. They were wearing Harris tweed and pork pie hats. They'd slit your throat and throw you in the gutter. But it's all you can expect from men like that. The bus is bound for Niles Bend Harbor. The ladies wear perfume to scar your nose. And the only way to reach them is to scare them. But of that you know little, I suppose. It's a magical and mystical performance as you perambulate right down the road with your pockets full of stardust and perfection, with Jesus on your side and in your soul. She had rings on every finger and 10 bracelets, some touch with powers given by a sage. He had contemplated giving her his wristwatch. The time for him had long since gone its way. Of the city he would shuffle while spinning on his heels and chewing beef. He had promised her he'd be a vegetarian.
Don't you wish that your weekend was longer than just 2 days? Well, if so, then you're in luck. Because you wish that your weekend was longer than just 2 days. Well, if so, then you're in luck. Because here on Rip Common Sense Radio, our weekend begins on Wednesday. Yes, you heard that right. Our weekend kicks off every Wednesday, 7 p.m. Pacific, 10, 9 Central, with DarkWolf's Den, starring yours truly, Jerry the Dark Wolf. But that's where the fun has only just begun. Make sure you come back every Thursday through Sunday at 7 p.m. Pacific, 10, 9 Central, for the Rippin' Rabbit Hole live show, starring AJ the Rippin' Rabbit. He dives into the archives of vocal legend Art Bell, the Animal Radio, those stories Jerry the Dark Wolf. So make sure that you spend your extended weekend with the Animal the Radio, Jerry the Dark Wolf, and AJ the Rippin' Rabbit. Starting at 7 p.m. Pacific, 10, 9 Central, every Wednesday through Sunday, right here on Rippin' Common Sense Radio.
Rippin' Rabbit Hole is a community-driven radio. At times, the community comments may reveal prejudices and other beliefs that we or our sponsors do not condone. Views or opinions expressed by the community, callers, or guests are those of the individual speaking and do not represent the views or opinions of this site. Rippin' Common Sense content is intended for mature audiences only. Enjoy.
Coming to you from a secret mountain cave hidden deep in the Idaho wilderness. This is coming to you from a secret mountain cave hidden deep within the Idaho wilderness. This is the Darkwolf's Den Show. Now, here is your host, Jerry Howls.
It is me, Jerry Hicks, known as the Dark Wolf, and welcome back. Hey, ripping rabbits! It is me, Jerry Hicks, also known as the Dark Wolf, and welcome back to Darkwolf's Common Sense, also known as the kickoff of the weekend. Tonight here on We've got an amazing show lined up for you guys. We're going to talk about the terribly twisted, tangled rabbit. We've got an amazing show lined up for you guys. We're going to talk about the edge of the galaxy, the tangled rabbit hole of time. Decided to have us. So whether you're on the edge of reality, the edge of the galaxy, or the edge of your seat, we dig in. We're glad you decided to have us right there along right here. So sit back, relax, and enjoy as we dig into the most creator that's tired of fighting over copyright issues for using the wrong music in your videos. Are you a YouTube creator that's tired of fighting over copyright issues for using the wrong music in your videos? Or perhaps a songwriter looking for something new? I know when I started DarkWolf's Den, I needed some original music, and for me, the answer was a no-brainer. I immediately called Tom Bayless of Red Shed Studios. Tom has been in the music industry for over 20 years and has a true passion for the art. So if you need a custom soundtrack for your next project, make sure you contact Tom Bayless at Red Shed Studios at 920-344-7634. That's 920-344-7634. Red Shed Studios. Back to the den. I do appreciate everybody. How is everybody doing tonight? Our pilot episode. I hope you all enjoyed that. I do appreciate everybody for tuning in. It was an absolute honor in our pilot episode. I hope you all enjoyed that. I know I talk to you guys every week. It was an absolute honor. I never would have dreamed of doing. Growing up, I used to love listening to paranormal. This is something that I never would have dreamed of doing. And one of my favorite growing up that they would talk about was time travel. And when that topic came up, I was glued. And one of my favorite things you couldn't get me away was even when they went to commercials. When that topic came up, I was glued. I was afraid I was going to miss. You couldn't get me away. And if you're like me, even when they went to commercials, surprisingly enough, I didn't move. I was afraid I was going to miss. Came from a story written in 1895. And if you're like me, one of your first soirees into time travel came from a story written in 1895 by H.G. Mechanical time travel called The Time Machine. It is not the first mention of time travel in mechanical. The first mention that I know of actually comes from the ancient Sanskrit Hindu text called the Mahabharata. The first mention that I know of actually comes from the ancient Sanskrit Hindu text. We're not going into the story here. I just thought 400 BC. We're not going to the story here. I just thought it was really neat that that's the oldest text written. Was about 400 BC, speaking of the concept of time travel. But since then, the idea has captured the minds and imaginations of generation upon generation of peoples. In modern times, we've had stories like Back to the Future, Time Cop, Terminator, and of course, The Time Traveler's Wife, just to name a few. Mechanical time travel devices seem to be pretty common in fiction, but what about in the real world? Well, what if I told you there very well may be evidence of real-world time travel? That's right. In his 2002 book, Le Nouveau Mystère du Vatican, or The Vatican's New Mystery, Father Francis Brune states that an Italian priest and scientist named Pellegrino Ernetti, along with 12 other of the most respected scientists of the time, invented a device called the chronovisor. And this is a really, really neat device, guys. So I want you to picture in your head real quick a great big metal cabinet, say a gunmetal gray cabinet. And in the middle of this cabinet is a TV screen. And in the middle of the TV screen, you've got all kind of images playing. And on the side, you've got buttons and levers and knobs and all kind of fun little things to turn and play with. And the way this machine works is you tune in to a specific time and area. And the machine is supposed to collect the electromagnetic and sound energy waves from that area and redisplay them on a TV screen right in front of you. Now, they claim to have used this device to witness such things as the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah, speeches given by the Roman politician Cicero, the Great Fire of Rome, and even the crucifixion of Jesus Christ. They were even said to have displayed and recorded the crucifixion of Christ. However, on his deathbed, Father Arnetti did admit to the Christ picture being faked. But that's where the story gets a little bit weird. You see, he was adamant to the point up to his death that the chronovisor really did exist. Even after admitting that the Jesus Christ picture was fake, he also was adamant that the chronovisor was a real thing. So you might be wondering what happened to the chronovisor. Well, the Vatican ordered it to be destroyed and dismantled. However, most truthers believe, like at the end of Indiana Jones and the Lost Ark, where the item was put in a box and put in a warehouse, I believe the very same thing has happened to this device. I believe it was put into a box in the very bottom of the Vatican archives to be hidden away from the public until such time that it's needed again. But is there any other evidence that would suggest time travel? Believe it or not, there actually is. How many of you have ever heard of OOP arts, also known as out-of-place artifacts? Take, for instance, what happened in 2008, when a team of archaeologists were in China uncovering a tomb, and while they were taking the dirt and soil off around a coffin, a piece of rock dropped off of it and hit the floor, but it made a metallic sound. And it really caught the archaeologist off guard. So they picked up the clump of dirt and knocked all the soil out of it, and a ring appeared. But here's the oddity. On the back of the ring, which ended up being a watch ring at that, had the word Switzerland printed in English. A Swiss watch ring was found in a 400-year-old Chinese tomb. Now, I ask you, how could that have come to be in there when it wasn't made but maybe a century prior? Yet it was 3 centuries behind that. That's an example of an out-of-place artifact. Or take the well dug near the Ohio River in North Cincinnati in 1826. It went down to a level of 94 feet when they found a buried tree stump. In the tree stump were clear marks that an axe had been swung into it. A little while later, they found the axe. It was a piece of iron that was shaped like a wedge. The layer in which the stump and axe and all were found dated between 50,000 and 75,000 years old. This is nearly 10 times the accepted age by science, of course, material science, of the first metal usage. That's a long time before we supposedly were be able to work metal, and this axe head was clearly there as evidence that someone or something had advanced technology at that time. Or take, for instance, Göbekli Tepe. I know that might seem a little out of place to you guys, but hear me out. If we're to believe modern science, then Göbekli Tepe was built by the same people that they claim were berry-eating, spear-throwing hunter-gatherers who were barely smart enough to smack 2 rocks together. Yet they were able to build a structure like Göbekli Tepe over 1,000 years before the tools that were needed to build such a structure as Göbekli Tepe even existed. So those were some pretty smart rock smackers to be able to build such an amazing structure. And then turn around and fill the entire thing in with dirt. That, if you ask me, is pretty darn incredible. But you have to ask yourself, how did a ring get in to a 400-year-old Chinese tomb when it wasn't even designed or created when the tomb was sealed? Or the axe head that was in a layer of soil a lot older than it should have been? Well, what about it being put there by time-traveling celebrities? That's right. I said time-traveling celebrities. So hear me out once again. Say you're a celebrity. You have all the money you could ever think of. You've got the house, you've got the car, you've got the dream, right? And you decide to go on vacation. However, where do you want to go? You've been to Disney World 90 times, Hawaii 90 times. You've been all over the world. You've got all the money in the world. Everything gets old after a while, right? When you can do everything, you don't really want to do anything, right? Because you've done it all. But then your elite buddy comes up to you and says, hey, man, we have a time machine. You want to go on a real vacation? Come with me. Let's go take a vacation in time. Celebrities like John Travolta, who has a very distinct match in history. Or Jack Black, who looks like the identical reincarnation of Paul Revere. And yes, the argument could be made of reincarnation, fair enough. How about Eddie Murphy? He has a twin back in history. But my favorite, my absolute favorite, is Vladimir Putin. Vladimir Putin has got a picture, at least a guy that looks identical to Vladimir Putin, from 1940. But that's not all. There's yet another one from 1920. So is he an immortal? Maybe a time traveler? Why do these time travelers keep showing up in photos? Willard Fillmore, right? He looks just like Alec Baldwin. That's interesting, huh? So do they really have access to time travel like we have access to going to the beach? Do they really take vacations like that? Perhaps. But when would you go? Think about that for a minute. If your buddy come up and said, hey man, I've got a time machine and we can go to any time you want, past or future, where would you go, right? Or when would you go? I guess would be the best question, huh? I've thought about that a lot. And my answer, it changes variably because I've come up with all kind of good answers. At first, I would have said ancient Egypt, right? To see the pyramids being built and know how they did it, know whether they used levitation or if they used canals or if it was even humans at all that built them, right? Could have been the Anunnaki. Maybe it's even something different than that. Or how about the Sphinx? That's even older, right? Who built the Sphinx? Wouldn't you love to see that thing being put up? What about ancient Samaria, when the gods were said to walk among man, right? How neat would that be? Or maybe when dinosaurs walked the earth? Would you like to go back and ride atop a Stegosaurus, huh? Maybe climb up a brontosaurus neck and go for a stroll one day? Maybe you'd like to go back like Father Ernetti claimed he did and see the crucifixion of Jesus Christ. Or even better, maybe the missing years of Jesus Christ, right? From 12 to 29? Maybe you'd like to go back there and see what really happened when Jesus was a kid. Wouldn't that be neat? I know I would. Wouldn't you? How about ancient Greece? Go hang out with the old philosophers. Discuss philosophy with the originals, right? All that would be so fun. Or the future. This is where I would like to go. And I was talking to my friend Heather the other day, and we were discussing different times, and she agreed she would like to go also to the future and see just how humanity fares, right? See if we get off this planet. See if we make it to another civilization, another world. See how technology goes. See what kind of amazing breakthroughs we get, right? That would be amazing. Or how about the very, very beginning of time? Back to the primordial soup, before humans even existed. Back to the moment DNA came together. Or your own birth. Somebody actually, when I asked them this question, said, well, I'd like to go see my own birth. I never would have thought about that. Your own birth. That would be pretty neat, wouldn't it? How about 1975? In the year 2000, the internet was in its early days, and it's very much in its infancy. And one of the main places to hang out were called bulletin boards. Well, on one called the Time Travel Institute, a person showed up on November 2nd named Time Travel _0. He posted there for a little while about the concepts of time travel, the ideas of how to build a time machine, different interesting things about time travel in general. He later would go on to get on the Art Bell forum, and because Art Bell set his forum up where you needed more of a regular style name, he went with the name John Teeter. John Teeter claimed to be an American soldier sent back in time from the year 2036 in a secret government time travel project. According to John, he was sent back to get an IBM 5100 computer from the year 1975. He said he needed this to debug various programs in 2036. Now, when I first heard this, like most of you right now probably are doing, I kind of laughed and said, why would you need old technology for new technology issues? However, there is something called the Unix Year 2038 problem, so that may very well be what it is in reference to. The IBM 5100 had some very interesting unpublished features that Mr. Teeter happened to know about. The strange thing here is only about 6 people in the entire world actually knew about these features. He claimed that he had stopped off in the year 2000 to pick up some personal items that he had lost during the war, or the Civil War I should say, that occurred in America around 2003 or 2004. However, we know in our timeline that did not happen. We'll get into reasons for that in the second part of the episode. But moving on, he also went on to post what would be considered the recipe for how to build a time machine. Now, he did not give us how to put it together. However, he did give us the list of ingredients that we would need. So tonight, we're going to tell you how to build your very own time machine. At least the products or the items that you would need, according to John Teeter. So first on the list, we have 2 magnetic housing units for the dual microsingularities. So don't worry, I will put that into layman's speak. That is saying you need 2 boxes with a very strong magnetic pull or very strong magnetism on them to hold a black hole in each one. A very small miniature, or what he calls micro black hole. That's what a microsingularity would be, the singularity at the center of a black hole. So far we've got 2 boxes that are very highly magnetic, and they are holding a miniature black hole in place in the middle of each box. I can picture this so far. Next, you need an electron injection manifold to alter mass and gravity of the microsingularities. So I'm assuming he means something like an electron gun, but I'm not entirely sure. Next, you would need a cooling and X-ray venting system. Of course, black holes do give off a lot of energy and X-rays. So you would need something to vent these extra energies out of the environment. Next, you would need a gravity sensor or a variable gravity lock. I don't know what a variable gravity lock would even be, so yeah, that one's just as good on you as it is me. This list was clearly not made for me to follow. Next, we need 4 main cesium clocks. 4 cesium I don't know why it has to be cesium, but that's what it says. And last but not least, you need 3 main computer units to run everything. And that, ladies and gentlemen, according to John Teeter, is how you build a time machine. But is John Teeter the only one to have ever claimed to travel through time? Well, it turns out he's not. There's a phenomenon known as time slips. And one of the most famous cases of a time slip occurred in 1935. It was a guy named Sir Victor Goddard. Take a listen to this.
One such case happened in 1935 when an air marshal, Sir Victor Goddard, was flying from England to Scotland. And while he was flying, he wanted to fly over an airfield that he used to know, but is now abandoned. And since this was close to his destination, he wanted to go check it out. So I'm guessing that he must have had some fond memories there. And while he was flying over it, he saw that the old hangars were falling apart. The foliage was overgrown, and the airport was now a farm filled with cattle. Now, after his little side mission, he decided it was time to fly to his destination in Scotland. Then after a couple of days in Scotland, it was time for him to fly back home to England. And during his flight, he saw a storm approaching. There was no way to escape the storm, so he had to fly through it. And while he was flying, his equipment just started to go haywire. He had a very hard time flying the plane. He didn't think he was going to make it. Then he saw that he was now surrounded by strange-looking yellow clouds. He also felt that he was falling for a very long time, but he never crashed. Then finally, these bizarre yellow clouds disappeared, and when he looked down, he saw the abandoned airfield. But this time, this airfield wasn't abandoned. The old hangars appeared to be brand new. He also saw 4 planes, and also the mechanics, which he recognized, but which was there was another plane that was painted yellow that he'd never seen before. Were dressed in brown and also overalls. The mechanics were dressed in blue overalls, which was strange. What the heck was going on? The mechanics in the yellow clouds were dressed in brown overalls. Again, he was surrounded by the storm. Victor was flying, wondering what the heck was going on. It wasn't as bad as the first time returned, and yet again, he was surrounded by the storm. Now, we did tell people what had happened to him. It wasn't as bad as the first time, and he was able to break free and get back home. No one took him seriously. Now, we did tell people what had happened to him, and what he saw when he returned. But what really freaked him out no one took him is that in 1939, 4 years later anymore, mechanics began to wear blue overalls. But what really freaked him out is that in 1939, 4 years later, mechanics began to wear blue overalls. Then the RAF, the Royal Air Force, started to make new yellow monoplanes, exactly like the one he saw. He also heard that the abandoned airfield was now being rebuilt. Now Victor, after seeing what he saw come true, believed that somehow he must have looked into the future. There was just no other explanation. He also believed that the bizarre storm that surrounded him, with those strange-looking yellow clouds, must have had something to do with it. But he never talked about it again until 1966 when he wrote about it. Then in 1975 he wrote a book called A Flight into Reality. Now because Victor at this time was a very well-respected member of the Royal Air Force, as well as being a senior commander, people now did believe him. He was even knighted by the Queen. So it must have took a lot of courage to write about his experience, because his good name was on the line, making this a very interesting case, and at least in my opinion, a very credible eyewitness.
A credible eyewitness indeed. Pilots have very specialized training and spend a lot of time in the sky, so when a pilot reports anything out of the ordinary, my ears perk up, and I love to listen. And that's an example of accidental time travel that we just heard, but is there any examples of time travel accidental besides that? Well, our friend Bit of Venom in the last show in the chat mentioned the man from Torred. And this is an amazing story, so I felt I had to bring it up tonight. Because it does suggest time travel, or time slips, or interdimensional travel, or who knows, that could be one and the same, right? Time travel and interdimensional travel. Again, we'll get more into that maybe in the second half, but about the man from Torred. In about 1954, a man arrives in Japan and gets off the plane and goes into customs. Upon going into customs, he gives his passport to them, and they don't recognize the name of the country on the passport. So they pulled the guy into interrogation and asked him where he's from, and he continued to demand he's from a country that they did not know existed. So upon asking him to point out his country on a map that he swore was between France and Spain, he pointed to the small country of Andorra and was quite distraught to find that his country, named Taured, Taured, was nowhere to be found on the map at all. He had been well traveled and all of the stamps looked completely legit, and he'd even been to Japan more than once according to his logbook. Also, the company he was supposed to be visiting there had never heard of him before. So because this alarmed the Japanese officials, they decided to go ahead and lock him in a hotel room a couple stories high and put some guards on his door. And they went ahead and put his personal belongings in a safe and left him be for the night. The next morning, they come back to check on the man from Taured, whose name was never given. And when they opened the door, the man had completely vanished, along with every bit of his property in the safe. So was he accidentally from another time who had slipped through to the 50s for whatever reason? Or even better, was he from another dimension, another time altogether, another time loop, timeline altogether? I know we've covered a lot of the woo of time travel in this first half, but guess what? We're going to tie it all back together in the second half, ladies and gentlemen. Like I said, we growl at the skeptics and howl about the truth. We got a lot of truth you're not even going to be able to believe coming up in the second half. But we do need to take a network break here, guys, so make sure you stick around. Don't go anywhere. We're going to take a couple minutes, have a couple commercials, and we'll be right back on the other side with some more amazing information right here on Darkwolf's Den, on Rippin' Common Sense Radio.
Hi guys, it's AJ the Rippin' Rabbit. Are you enjoying the Darkwolf's Den show? I know I am. If you are, make sure that you thumb up that video, hit that subscribe button, and ring that bell as we kick off the weekends now here at the Rippin' Rabbit Hole every Wednesday night starting at 7 p.m. Pacific, 10/9 Central. Jerry, DarkWolf's Den, howls at the paranormal with a variety of subjects. Last week covering cryptids, the abominable snowmen, and of course this evening diving down the rabbit hole of time travel, a fascinating journey with a lot more to come. I'll be back again tomorrow night, Thursday, with Nachikita. I'm excited and really looking forward to that. This is going to be a one-on-one sit-down interview with our friend, former Ripponite, and of course Rippin' Rabbit Hole community member, Michael Nachikita. It's going to be a great night. Join us tomorrow, Thursday, May 21st, starting at 7 p.m. Pacific, 10/9 Central. Then Friday night, May 22nd, we're going to dive down the rabbit hole of invisibility and look closely at the cloaks of invisibility. Is man-made invisibility possible? We'll find out Friday night, May 22nd. Then Saturday, to the moon. That's right, one of these days, pow, we're going to the moon. What does that mean for us, you and I, as humans? And we'll end out the weekend Sunday, May 24th, a radio first, an on-air experiment with the power of suggestion. Can you be hypnotized? We'll find out Sunday night, May 24th, starting at 7 p.m. Pacific, 10/9 Central. We end out the weekend with Hypnotize Me. It's a fantastic lineup. I'm looking forward to the rest of the weekend. And at some point, also, we expect to hear from Moneybags with an update on the Mandela Monthly, which happens around here the first weekend of every month. So tune in all weekend long to, as Jerry says, the animals of radio, as it is an exciting lineup, to say the least. If you visit our website, you can sign up for our mail list. We'll send that schedule out every Wednesday morning. We'll be back to Jerry Hicks and the DarkWolf's Den Show as time travel continues. So stick around, the weekend's just beginning, and I take my top hats off to you for being smart enough to be here. The very best in common sense radio all weekend long, therippandrabbithole.com.
Hi, I'm Jerry Hicks, host of DarkWolf's Den, right here on Rippin' Common Sense Radio. And I want to talk to you today about an organization that means a lot to me and that I am proud to be a part of. We are called IMEC Incorporated, which stands for the International Mandela Effect Conference. We are a 501c3 organization run by a team of artists, authors, and visionaries who are extremely passionate about both the Mandela Effect phenomenon as well as the community surrounding it. IMEC is united in a mission to inspire, empower, and unify all curious observers. Through evidence presented by scientists, researchers, authors, and spiritual leaders around the world, we aim to educate the community on this incredible reality-changing event known as the Mandela Effect. Our 2020 event will be held online this year, June 20th to 26th, and will be available for absolutely free, both on our website at imec.world, as well as the International Mandela Effect Conference YouTube page. For more information, please visit imec.world. That is imec.world. IMEC.WORLD. Together we go, together we grow. Are you a YouTube creator that's tired of fighting over copyright issues for using the wrong music in your videos? Or perhaps a songwriter looking for something new? I know when I started DarkWolf's Den, I needed some original music, and for me, the answer was a no-brainer. I immediately called Tom Bayless of Red Shed Studios. Tom has been in the music industry for over 20 years and has a true passion for the art. So if you need a custom soundtrack for your next project, make sure you contact Tom Bayless at Red Shed Studios at 920-344-7634. That's 920-344-7634. Red Shed Studios. Don't you wish that your weekend was longer than just 2 days? Well, if so, then you're in luck, because here on Rippin' Common Sense Radio, our weekend begins on Wednesday. Yes, you heard that right. Our weekend kicks off every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Pacific, 10/9 Central, with Darkwolf's Den, starring yours truly, Jerry the Dark Wolf. But that's where the fun has only just begun. Make sure you come back every Thursday through Sunday at 7 p.m. Pacific, 10/9 Central, for the Rippin' Rabbit Hole Live Show, starring AJ the Rippin' Rabbit. He dives into the archives of vocal legend Art Bell and brings those stories up to date. So make sure that you spend your extended weekends with the Animals of Radio, Jerry the Dark Wolf and AJ the Rippin' Rabbit, starting at 7 p.m. Pacific, 10/9 Central, every Wednesday through Sunday, right here on Rippin' Common Sense Radio. Oh, yeah, the Animals of Radio, that's right, Jerry the Dark Wolf and our buddy AJ the Rippin' Rabbit. Guys, don't forget, Thursday through Sunday at 7 p.m. Pacific, 10/9 Central, right here on Rippin' Common Sense Radio, is the Rippin' Rabbit Hole Live Show. Tomorrow night's topic, and this is a good one, guys, you're not going to want to miss this. He's going to be joined by Nachikita, who is an incredibly deep thinker and a community member, and a person that I've had the absolute honor and pleasure of having many hours of conversation with. So again, you're not going to want to miss tomorrow night. Then, on Friday, invisibility. So what if you could be invisible and a time traveler, right? An invisible time traveler, that would be dangerous. So you guys make sure you tune in the rest of the weekend for AJ the Rippin' Rabbit, right here on Rippin' Common Sense Radio. And now, back to the part 2 of time travel. Okay, guys, so we've talked about a lot of woo. We've talked about a lot of stuff that seems pretty out there, and a lot of people are probably thinking this show has nothing to do with anything in the real world or science. However, if you remember from my last show, you would be very
time travel
wrong.
has
when it comes
really
to time
captures
travel, you would
our
think
imagination.
that's just
I
a
have some
classic sci-fi
examples
trope.
here on my
However,
title slide. We've
as we're
got the
gonna
poster
find
from
out
Back
here
to the
shortly,
Future.
it may not
This
be
interesting painting by
only
Salvador
relegated
Dali
to
and
the
Marcel
world
Duchamp. And,
of sci-fi.
of course, there's Star Trek and countless science fiction media. Now, I always, in all my talks on time travel, point out this quote or something like it. This is from Simon Newcomb. Aerial flight is one of the class of problems with which men will never have to cope. I didn't include it in my talk, but the New York Times, in July of 1969, you'll probably figure out why that's a significant date, had to retract a statement they wrote in 1920 saying that a rocket will never leave the Earth's atmosphere because it has nothing to push against. Oops. So my point here is that even though, as we'll see today, that even if time travel is most likely impossible due to our best understanding of physics, our best understanding has been wrong. So it's not just that a non-scientist writing an article in the New York Times, for example, has been wrong, but also experts have been wrong on the feasibility of air travel and the feasibility of space travel. And I could have an entire talk on quotes of famous astronomers saying how space travel was nonsense and will never leave the Earth's gravity.
And this right here is an incredibly important point, in my opinion. I can't count the times science has said that something is impossible, only to turn around and say, oops, we were wrong, turns out it's very much possible. So, if you didn't learn anything from my last show, remember, don't let anybody tell you that something is impossible because science says so. Because very often, science has to go back and correct itself. And of course, as we know, Einstein's theory of special relativity and relativity in general have been proven and reproven more times than not. So it is one of the very few theories, I guess you would say, within science that actually holds up to the scrutiny. But let's see what Einstein, of all people, the father of modern physics, the closest thing we've got to the truth in physics right now, well, let's see what he had to say about time travel, both to the future and the past. Take a listen.
Let's start with Isaac Newton. Isaac Newton believed that time was like an arrow. Once you fired it, it went in a straight direction. 1 second on the Earth was 1 second on Mars, was 1 second on Jupiter. It never reversed directions. Along comes Einstein, who says, not so fast, not so fast. Time is like a river, old man river, that meanders around stars, speeds up and slows down. The new wrinkle in all this, which is causing all the excitement and the dismay of philosophers, is that this river of time can fork into two rivers. Or perhaps the river of time can have whirlpools and time can go in on itself. In that case, time travel is something you have to take very seriously, because Einstein's equations do allow for time travel. And they're blueprints, blueprints for different kinds of time travel designs that are compatible with Einstein's theory. For example, gigantic spinning cylinders. You go around the cylinder and you come back before you left. Colliding cosmic strings. You wind around these cosmic strings and you come back before you left.
And this reminds me of the game Quantum Break. If anyone's ever played that game, then you'll know what I'm talking about. One of the main characters in there builds a machine that is built like a circular ring around a black hole. And it's a hallway that you walk around, and time you come out the other side, you've traveled back in time due to the energy of the event horizon, the black hole. So this reminds me a lot of that, hearing him talk about Einstein's equations and how the whirlpool of time and how things like that allow for time travel.
Einstein's theory, it allows this under certain solutions?
That's right. Time and space are like a fabric, like rubber, like a trampoline net. However, if you stretch the trampoline net so much, it can rip, perhaps. And perhaps you can turn this trampoline net into a pretzel and allow yourself to go backwards in time. Now, of course, there's a catch. There's always a catch in these things. The energy, the gasoline necessary to do this is fabulous. Even an atomic bomb does not have enough energy to drive a time machine. For a time machine, you need the energy of an exploding star.
He just said to do that, you would need the energy of an exploding star. That's quite a lot of energy, but is there anything on Earth that could create anything close to that kind of energy? Perhaps even capable of creating a black hole? I know all the Mandela Effect community out there will be screaming one word loudly right now. That word, of course, is CERN.
How about all the logical paradoxes that one would come across in time travel, going back to the past, killing your grandmother, and all of those kinds of issues?
Or meeting your teenage mother when she's a teenager and she falls in love with you. So how can you be born if your teenage mother just fell in love with you?
And of course, Dr. Kaku is referencing Back to the Future, where the teenage mother falls in love with what is her time-traveling son. She just does not know it. And you are in big trouble if that happens. But I want to play for you now, guys, one of my favorite time travel stories. And it's really, really fun. It kind of gets us into the next part. We're going to talk about paradoxes next. What are they? Can they be solved? And does it make time travel actually impossible? We're going to find out in a minute. But first, ladies and gentlemen, I now present to you by Dr. Michio Kaku, the mother of all time travel stories. Dr. Kaku, take it away.
Let me give you the mother of all time travel stories and see whether you can figure this out. Let's see whether you're smart enough to figure this one out. The year is 1945. A stranger comes in from the darkness carrying a baby girl that he leaves at an orphanage. Well, the nuns find this baby girl. They don't know where the baby girl came from. So the nuns call her Jane. And Jane grows up as an orphan, wondering, who is my mother? Who is my father? Well, when Jane is 17 years old, she's a beautiful young woman, and then she has her first boyfriend. A drifter comes drifting into her life, but it was not meant to be. They quarrel. She argues with her boyfriend, and it's a very sad story. First, she finds out that she's pregnant. Her boyfriend has left her. She's abandoned and pregnant. She's rushed to the hospital 9 months later. She delivers a beautiful baby girl, but somebody that night breaks open the window of the hospital, kidnaps Jane's baby girl, and leaves in the darkness. Well, it's even worse than this. Jane is bleeding very rapidly. She's going to die. The doctors have to perform an emergency experimental operation. They have to change Jane into Jim. Well, Jim wakes up the next day with this huge headache, and he's told the bad news. First, the boyfriend left her pregnant, somebody stole her baby, and now she's not even Jane anymore. She's Jim. Well, Jim grows up and becomes a barroom drunk. Every time someone says, "Who are you, Jim? Where did you come from? Who was your mother, your father?" Well, finally, Jim one day is once again stone drunk at the bottom of a bar after a bar fight. But the bartender comes up to him and says, Jim, wake up. You see, I'm not really a bartender. I'm a time traveler. Come into my machine and let us find out who is this Jim/Jane. So they go back, way back into the past. So poor Jim, he doesn't quite know where he is in the past. But suddenly, he meets this beautiful 17-year-old girl. And it's love at first sight. But you know, it was not meant to be. They quarrel. And then Jim finds out that his girlfriend is pregnant. And then Jim says to himself, oh my God, history's repeating itself. This happened to me. Well, I'm going to make sure that my baby gets the best education possible. That night, 9 months later, Jim goes to the hospital, breaks open the window, kidnaps his own precious baby girl. And then Jim and his baby girl go back into the time machine. Again, back, way back into the past, until it is 1945. It is a dark and stormy night. Jim comes in from the darkness carrying his precious baby girl that he drops off at an orphanage. Well, the nuns don't know what to do with this baby girl they find the next day, so the nuns call her Jane. And Jane grows up wondering, who is my mother? Who is my father? I was left as a foundling on the doorstep of this orphanage. Well, Jim finally gets it together. Jim says, I don't want to be a drunk all my life. I'm going to join the Time Traveler's Corps. So Jim has many heroic exploits in the annals of time. Now Jim is an old man. He says to himself, I've had a good life, but I want one final mission. For my last mission in time, I'm going to go backwards in time, put on a wig, to impersonate a bartender, to meet a certain barroom drunk who just got into a fist fight because someone said, who are you, Jim? Who is your mother? Your father? Now, for 10 points, who can tell me? Who is Jim's mother? Father, son, daughter.
Oh, yeah. Have you figured it out yet? Do you know? Who is Jane? Who is Jim? Who is Jim's grandfather, mother, brother, sister, and all? Have you figured it out?
Yeah, Jane is a family tree unto herself. Can you imagine a family get together and they get into a food fight and someone says, you did this to me. No, you did that to yourself.
You did that to yourself. I've always loved that story. But it brings up the point that I was bringing up a moment ago, and that is paradoxes. And paradoxes may very well disprove time travel, right? Logically, paradoxes are things that, once thought through, don't make sense. For instance, me trying to explain this. I'm just kidding. Like, for instance, the grandfather paradox. And let's listen to a little bit about what that is.
A classic example is the grandfather paradox, in which a time traveler goes back and kills his grandfather. If you traveled back in time and killed your grandfather before he made your father, would you still be born? If not, how then did you manage to travel back in the first place?
That is, of course, the most popular one, the grandfather paradox. But let's put it in a little different light. What if somebody went back and killed Hitler before Hitler came to power? Would that particular event still happen even though that particular leader wasn't there? Would another person have just been in their place? These are what I call time-locked events. Events that I believe would happen regardless of other things that happen around them. Certain events that are locked into history that have to happen, like 9/11, among other events. I would say these would maybe fix these paradoxes just a little bit, so you could travel back in time, but you couldn't travel and mess up these specific time-locked events. I don't know, it's just an idea. But let's check out another paradox. This is called the Theseus paradox.
The ship of Theseus was preserved by Athenians with great care after Theseus returned from Crete to Athens. Over the years, the wooden planks had to be replaced so the ship could be kept in working condition. Well, it wasn't long until every old piece was removed by a newer wooden piece. This begs the question, was the new ship of Theseus still the same ship as before? This is Theseus's paradox, and it refers to an object which, over time, has all of its pieces replaced. Is such an object still the original, or is it an entirely new one? And if it's a new object, when does the transformation take place? Is replacing the first piece enough to change the object's identity, or is the last piece the final nail in the coffin? But what if, instead of throwing the pieces away, you take the rotten wooden planks and create another ship? Which one, if either, is the original ship?
And here's yet another one that we can think of on a philosophical scale. So they say that every 7 years, your body changes to a whole new body. All of your cells have restored and become fresh cells. So does that mean you're a completely different person? Or are you the same person that you were 7 years ago? Not even mentally, but all the way around. Of course, these are some interesting philosophical as well as scientific questions to ask. But one more paradox really blows all of the rest of them out of the water, and that is called the bootstrap paradox. Listen to this.
Imagine one day you receive a mysterious package. There is no note saying who sent the package or why it's been sent to you. Confused but curious, you open the package to find a book, How to Build a Time Machine. You dismiss it at first as some kind of joke, but after reading through the book, you start to believe that it might actually be real. You decide to give it a go and start collecting all the materials and items you need. It takes a long time, but after 10 years and several failed attempts, you finally build a working time machine. In all this time, you never find out where the book came from or why it was sent to you. But then it suddenly hits you. You grab the book and jump into your time machine. You travel back in time 10 years, leaving the book for your younger self to discover. But where did the book originally come from? You can only build the time machine if you discover the book, but you can only discover the book if you build the time machine. It appears that the book has not been created by anyone and is stuck in an endless causal loop. This is known as the bootstrap paradox.
To me, thinking about the paradoxes is one of the most fun parts about even thinking about time travel at all and different ways to get around the paradoxes. And you would think at this point that, we might be in trouble, guys. Time travel might be doomed, right? Well, not exactly. Remember earlier in the show, I told you that there might be a reason that none of John Titor's, or I shouldn't say none, very little of John Titor's predictions came true. And I'm about to present to you now the reason, as John Titor also did present in his explanations. And now physicists believe why time travel may very well still be possible. Here is the answer to all of the paradoxes. Check it out.
There are two ways to resolve these paradoxes. The first is self-consistency, that if you want to shoot your parents before you're born, there's something preventing you from pulling that trigger. Maybe there's a hidden law of physics that says you cannot create a time paradox. I don't believe that.
Yeah, that seems far out.
That's far out. I believe that the river of time forks into two rivers. If you saw Back to the Future Part 2 very carefully, Doc Brown, this Einstein figure, goes to the blackboard and draws a timeline from the 50s to the 80s. And then he draws a separate line that splits off from the main timeline. the river of time forks into two rivers.
Is this getting to the so-called many-world interpretation of quantum mechanics? Would that be...
That is the simplest way to resolve all these paradoxes.
That never seemed very simple to me.
Well, it's the simplest in the sense that you don't have to add any other assumptions other than quantum mechanics.
Sure.
So if you go backwards in time and save Abraham Lincoln from being assassinated in the Ford's Theater, you saved somebody else's Abraham Lincoln, who's genetically equivalent to your Abraham Lincoln, but you've entered another universe. If you shoot your parents before you're born, you've shot somebody else's parents before you're born, who's genetically equivalent to your parents. So you can go backwards in time continually, monkey with your own past. However, you're monkeying with, in some sense, a parallel past.
Right.
Now, Stephen
Maybe
Hawking...
creating a parallel past.
Creating a whole new universe.
universe.
That's right. And Stephen Hawking even said there's got to be a laws of physics preventing this thing from happening. Well, we've tried and tried and tried and failed. We cannot find any law of physics preventing you from going backwards in time. It seems to be consistent with the known laws of physics. The trick is you have to have this energy on the scale of a star. You'd have to be a very advanced civilization. So these tourists from the future are just not 100 years into the future. These tourists from the future would be perhaps millions of years in the future, the ability to control the output of a star. We physicists are hot rodders of physics. We push the equations until they break down. So Stephen Hawking assumed that they would break down. Well, we were shocked. They didn't break down. The laws of physics seem to be compatible with time machines.
And ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. The laws of physics are absolutely compatible with time machines. And that was Dr. Michio Kaku, leading physicist. So, what do you guys think? Is time travel possible? Has it been possible? Could it be possible? Could it be already have been possible? How? Yeah, you be the judge. And that's all the time we have for tonight, folks. I hope you enjoyed the show as much as I enjoyed doing it for you. As a matter of fact, if so, go ahead and drop us a 1 over there in the YouTube chat room. We'd really appreciate that. Guys, the den may be closing, but don't you worry. The Animals of Radio like to party all weekend long. Make sure you come back Thursday through Sunday, 7 p.m. Pacific, 10/9 Central, for the Rippin' Rabbit Hole live show, starring our buddy AJ the Rippin' Rabbit. Guys, I am personally excited for tomorrow night's show. AJ will be joined by Nachikita. He is an incredibly deep thinker who lives in India, and the conversation, I'm sure, will go some amazing places. Then, on Friday night at 7 p.m. Pacific, 10/9 Central, one of my favorite rabbit holes. I happen to know it's about invisibility. And that is, the one superpower that I would always want. I'd love to have invisibility, sneak into places like Area 51, even though they probably already got gadgets that would detect that, huh? Speaking of places to be, the RippinRabbitHole.com is the place to be. Over there, you're going to find our DarkWolf's Den Show groups page. Make sure you go ahead and drop us a line. Let us know how we're doing and where you're listening from. I would love to know all around the world exactly where all of our amazing listeners are at. We've also got our DarkWolf's Den Show group suggestions and topics page over there. If you'd like to drop us a suggestion, we'd love to hear what you got to say. And we'll try to get those on the air just as quickly as we can. Speaking of getting on the air, if you'd like to send us an on-air shout-out, it is really easy to do. Just go to the bottom of any page on RippinRabbitHole.com, and you're going to find a great big red button. When you press that button, it'll let you record 30 seconds audio, and then it'll automatically send it to us in the studio. After that, we'll get it on the air for you just as quickly as we can. Guys, I'm about to head on over to the VIP lounge. That's where I love to hang out every night. If you'd like to hang out with me, it's absolutely 110% free. You will have to have a microphone and camera hooked up. However, once you enter the VIP lounge, you can turn both of those off and merely use text chat. We'll be back next week with an all-new episode covering yet another amazing topic right here in Darkwolf's Den every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Pacific, 10/9 Central. I'm Jerry Hicks, also known as Dark Wolf, and this is Darkwolf's Den right here on Rip It Common Sense Radio. Remember always, stay awake and dare to dream. Don't you touch that dial out. Yeah.
Did you enjoy the Darkwolf's Den show with host Jerry Hicks? Put a 1 in the chat room if you can't wait for the conversations to continue. I don't know. Jerry's howling at paranormal sends shivers down my spine. My top hat's off to Darkwolf's Den. A wonderful addition to the weekend lineup here on the very best of Common Sense Radio, the Rippin' Rabbit Hole. Jerry will be back again next Wednesday night, starting at 7 p.m. Pacific, 10/9 Central, as he kicks off the weekends right. I'll be back again tomorrow night, Thursday, with Nachikita. I'm excited and really looking forward to that. This is going to be a one-on-one sit-down interview with our friend, former Ripponite, and of course Rippin' Rabbit Hole community member, Michael Nachikita. It's going to be a great night. Join us tomorrow, Thursday, May 21st, starting at 7 p.m. Pacific, 10/9 Central. Then Friday night, May 22nd, we're going to dive down the rabbit hole of invisibility and look closely at the cloaks of invisibility. Is man-made invisibility possible? We'll find out Friday night, May 22nd. Then Saturday, to the moon. That's right, one of these days, pow, we're going to the moon. What does that mean for us, you and I, as humans? And we'll end out the weekend Sunday, May 24th, a radio first, an on-air experiment with the power of suggestion. Can you be hypnotized? We'll find out Sunday night, May 24th, starting at 7 p.m. Pacific, 10/9 Central. We end out the weekend with Hypnotize Me. It's a fantastic lineup. I'm looking forward to the rest of the weekend. And at some point, also, we expect to hear from Moneybags with an update on the Mandela Monthly, which happens around here the first weekend of every month. So tune in all weekend long to, as Jerry says, the animals of radio, as it is an exciting lineup, to say the least. If you visit our website, you can sign up for our mail list. We'll send that schedule out every Wednesday morning. Now, we only send one email, and the only way you're going to get it is if you join the mailing list there at ripinrabbithole.com. So stick around. The weekend's just beginning. And I take my top hats off to you for being smart enough to be here. The very best in Common Sense Radio all weekend long. The ripinrabbithole.com. Ow! If I knew how to make a rabbit sound, I would.
Hi, I'm Jerry Hicks, host of Darkwolf's Den, right here on Rippin' Common Sense Radio. And I want to talk to you today about an organization that means a lot to me and that I am proud to be a part of. We are called IMEC Incorporated, which stands for the International Mandela Effect Conference. We are a 501c3 organization run by a team of artists, authors, and visionaries who are extremely passionate about both the Mandela Effect phenomenon as well as the communities surrounding it. IMEC is united in a mission to inspire, empower, and unify all curious observers. Through evidence presented by scientists, researchers, authors, and spiritual leaders around the world, we aim to educate the community on this incredible reality-changing event known as the Mandela Effect. Our 2020 event will be held online this year, June 20th to 26th, and will be available for absolutely free, both on our website at imec.world, as well as the International Mandela Effect Conference YouTube page. For more information, please visit imec.world. That is imec.world. IMEC.WORLD. Together we go, together we grow. Are you a YouTube creator that's tired of fighting over copyright issues for using the wrong music in your videos? Or perhaps a songwriter looking for something new? I know when I started Darkwolf's Den, I needed some original music, and for me, the answer was a no-brainer. I immediately called Tom Bayless of Red Shed Studios. Tom has been in the music industry for over 20 years and has a true passion for the art. So if you need a custom soundtrack for your next project, make sure you contact Tom Bayless at Red Shed Studios at 920-344-7634. That's 920-344-7634. Red Shed Studios. Don't you wish that your weekend was longer than just 2 days? Well, if so, then you're in luck, because here on Rippin' Common Sense Radio, our weekend begins on Wednesday. Yes, you heard that right. Our weekend kicks off every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Pacific, 10/9 Central, with Darkwolf's Den, starring yours truly, Jerry the Dark Wolf. But that's where the fun has only just begun. Make sure you come back every Thursday through Sunday at 7 p.m. Pacific, 10/9 Central, for the Rippin' Rabbit Hole Live Show, starring AJ the Rippin' Rabbit. He dives into the archives of vocal legend Art Bell and brings those stories up to date. So make sure that you spend your extended weekends with the animals of radio, Jerry the Dark Wolf and AJ the Rippin' Rabbit, starting at 7 p.m. Pacific, 10/9 Central, every Wednesday through Sunday, right here on Rippin' Common Sense Radio.
Absolute beginners came to Georgetown. They were wearing Harris tweed and pork pie hats. They'd slit your throat and throw you in the gutter. But it's all you can expect from men like that. The bus is bound for Niles Bend.